What's going on, guys? JSGC here, and we are here for another video. This time we're going to be talking about the Qatar World Cup stadiums. Not until 2022, it's a bit early, but it is a video request. So if anyone's got any video requests for any videos that you'd like to see me do, just let me know in the comments below. We're going to crack on with this video, and we're first up going to start off with a geography lesson, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about Qatar in case you are unfamiliar. So a population of 2.6 million people, or just over 2.6 million people. It's only a small country. In terms of geographical size, it's smaller than what Wales is, which is very surprising. Its capital is a place called Doha. They do a lot of international flights, mostly Europe, with Far Eastern Asia, Australia and Oceania and places like that. And so one place to stop over is in the Middle East, and if you're flying with Qatar Airways, then it'll stop in Doha, and that's the capital of Qatar. Now, it's a Middle Eastern country, has a border with Saudi Arabia. It also has a close border nearly with the UAE. There's a little bit of Saudi Arabia separating the United Arab Emirates along with Qatar, but it's in the Persian Gulf, and it's literally just sticking out. So if you have a look at the Persian Gulf and the Middle East, you'll see just a little bit sticking out into the Persian Gulf, and that is Qatar. Now, if you're flying from England, so if you're from England, because I'm from England, I'll tell you a bit about it, but if you're flying from England at this moment in time, you'll be avoiding going around flying through Syria, because that'd be one way of getting to Qatar, and going through Saudi Arabia to get to Qatar. Instead goes around, so you'll end up flying over Iraq, which I found quite unusual, but there we go, and that's your way to get in. Now, in terms of looking at the summer for a World Cup, in terms of temperature, you're looking at around daytime temps around 40 to 41 degrees Celsius. That's well over 100 degrees in Fahrenheit, and around 28, 29 degrees in Celsius overnight, which is extremely warm. So yeah, you can understand why there's a possibility that there will be a Winter World Cup. And to be fair, there's a strong possibility that it will be a Winter World Cup. They have announced that it is going to be in November, December. So waiting for the final draw-ups of all that conclusion, but I'm expecting it to be in November, December of 2022. And if we're looking at temperatures then, in daytime temperatures, you're looking at anything between 24 and 32 degrees in Celsius, which is a lot more bearable, and overnight around 16 to 20 degrees, which isn't too bad. And you can see that's why they're having to look at doing it in the winter, because that's what happens when you have it in the desert. But there we go, that's your geography lesson done. We're going to crack on with the stadium. So we're going to start off in no particular order here. We're going to start off by looking at where some of the stadiums are. Now, I was having a look. Some of them are cities, some of them are municipalities. I hope I'm pronouncing that word right, but that's like states, so that's where they'll be based, and some of the states have got more than others. So we'll have a look first at some of the stadiums, and we're going to start off with Al Rayyan. Now, in Al Rayyan, they've got a stadium called the Al Rayyan Stadium. A 21,282 capacity stadium, and it's proposed to be expanded to 44,740. Bear that 44,740 in mind. There's a lot of stadiums with that proposed capacity, and it just looks like your typical modern stadium, in my opinion. Now, also based in Al Rayyan is the Gharafa Stadium. I hope, again, I'm pronouncing that right. But that's 21,282 capacity too, which is proposed again to be expanded to 44,740. They're going to expand them for the World Cup, let's face it. They know there's going to be the demand there. Once the World Cup's over, I'll get onto that later in the video, what they're going to do with the stadiums. They've got plans in process to deal with that. But again, it's your typical modern stadium. I like the clearness of the roof. It's quite a colourful stadium, so yeah, not too bad a stadium. I've seen worse, trust me, in modern stadiums. And the last one based in Al Rayyan is the Education City Stadium. Love that name, which is going to have a capacity of 45,350, and it's in my opinion, it's your typical Middle Eastern looking football stadium, in my opinion. It's everything that I'd imagine a Qatar World Cup for its stadiums to have, in my opinion. Anyway, we're going to move from Al Rayyan, we're going to move to Salal, and in Salal, they're going to have the Salal Stadium. Yeah, some great names here, but this is going to have a capacity of 45,120, and there's been various amounts of designs about what it's going to look like. So the picture I'm popping up is what I'm presuming it's going to look like. Finding details on this, it's extremely difficult doing my research on it for the last day or so. Very difficult in finding things, so if any of the pictures that I'm putting up are inaccurate, I do apologise. But if this is a stadium of what it's going to look like, then it's a pretty smart looking stadium in my opinion. It's an unusual design. It's not your typical bowl, it's not your typical rounded stadium, and to be fair, a pretty smart looking stadium for Salal. So yeah, if it does end up looking like that, pretty decent. Now next up, we're going to move on to Al Wakrah, and they're going to have the Al Wakrah Stadium. Great name again. And again, 45,120 in capacity. And I'm going to say it, it looks like a big vagina. We'll move on. So next up, we've got the Al Shamal Stadium. Based in Al Shamal. And again, just like the previous one in Al Wakrah, it looks an unusual design, we'll say that, but it looks like a massive diamond, doesn't it? It's like a little diamond shaped, I don't know, it's a pretty unusual looking stadium in my opinion. Modern stadiums for you there, but yeah, we'll move on from that. That's a 45,120 capacity too, and we'll move on to Al Khor, which I think this is going to have the smallest capacity stadium proposed at the moment out of all of the World Cup stadiums for 2022, and it's going to be called the Al Khor Stadium, based in Al Khor. Now, I've seen a couple of different designs for the stadium. One of them has got like a massive long strip. I don't know if it's going to look like that. Pretty unusual, in my opinion. But I think they're going with a long strip. I was looking at the construction, and they've not got a long strip in at the moment, but they've got like the typical bowl around it. So I think that they're going to go with that one. But again, I'm not too sure. Next up, we're going to move on to the capital, Doha. So first up, we're going to have the Qatar University Stadium. 44,915 capacity, and it's possibly the most boring stadium I've ever seen, so we're going to move on from that, and we're going to have a look at the Doha Port Stadium. And we've gone from probably the most boring looking stadium to probably one of the more interesting ones. Capacity 45,330, sitting right on the port of all the nice buildings in Doha there. Nice and modern. It looks a little bit like Dubai with all the crystal clear lagoon just based around it in the port. And how smart does it look? It looks so modern and clean. It looks like, well, it looks amazing in my opinion. It's everything that you'd imagine from a typical modern Middle Eastern country in my opinion. And so, yeah, I think that's a pretty smart looking stadium and one of my favourites, certainly for the World Cup. Next up in Doha, we've got the Sports City Stadium. 47,560. This is possibly the most unusual design that I've seen at a World Cup, because it's levelled, it looks like an office building, you know, like one of the modern new buildings that you get where you've got a load of offices and they've got these unusual shaped designs onto it. And then all of a sudden, if you used to send a drone up, you'd see it's not offices, but it's actually a football stadium in the middle of it. That's very unusual in my opinion, but you know, I like unusual. Why not? Why not? And next up, we've got the Khalifa International Stadium. 50,000 capacity at this moment in time, but they've got plans to expand it to 68,000. I will presume that they're going to expand it for the World Cup, and I presume this is going to be the semi-final location for the World Cup. The stadium itself, it looks like, do you remember what South Africa, some of the stadiums in South Africa 2010 World Cup looked like? Reminds me of something like that. It's a pretty decent stadium to look at, decent in size too, and like I said, 68,000. It'll be a semi-final location. It won't be the final because we've got the main stadium. And speaking of the main stadium, we head to Lusail. Lusail, just north of Doha. It's like in a suburb of Doha, and we're going to be based at, in my favourite name of all, the Lusail Iconic Stadium, because it's meant to be iconic. Capacity 86,250 in the final for the World Cup 2022. It looks like a mixture of like the Nou Camp, the Etihad Stadium and the Emirates Stadium. We used to mix it all into one and take the roof off and operate, and that's what it looks like. Decent size too. Yeah, pretty decent stadium. There's a couple of stadiums in there that I think smart looking. There's a couple of unusual ones like the Vagina Stadium that you know, I'd have some doubt over. There's some weird looking strips in there, but all in all, everything you'd imagine for a modern World Cup, and that's pretty much what this World Cup is. Now I'm going to give you some details about the World Cup and what they're going to do with the stadiums afterwards. Now apparently all grounds are going to have air conditioning, which can see the temperature in the stadiums drop by around 20 degrees in Celsius, so instead of it being 40 degrees, it'll be around 21 degrees, which is much more bearable for the summer if there was to do that. However, I know they've got plans in motion to have it in the winter, so I'm not too sure if they're going to have the stadium being 20 degrees cooler when it's, say, 24 degrees. Otherwise, that makes the stadium around 4 degrees, and everyone's gone from being, well, nice and summery and warm and in shorts to being absolutely freezing. So I'm not too sure what they're going to do about the air conditioning. I imagine they won't have it switched on, save a bit of money. Think about it. But yeah, apparently all the stadiums that are not the main stadiums, so the ones that have purposely been built just for the World Cup, so a lot of the ones that I mentioned at the beginning that have got 2 tiers, apparently the top tier of them stadiums are going to be temporary seating, and it's going to be able to be lifted off, then moved, and I don't know what they're going to be doing with it, but apparently, according to rumours, they're going to be donating them to local sports institute to use to try and boost up local economies, to try and get more people playing football and developing more teams in Qatar, to try and develop well, a better league basically in Qatar for Qatari football. I'm not too sure if they're going to scrap it literally and scrap it for metal and its materials and try and make some money back from it or not, or whether they're going to leave it. It's such a shame, the World Cup, particularly South Africa this is aimed at, that just leave the stadiums to die, and they've just been built for the World Cup, and then you end up having like a 60,000 seat stadium, and it only ever has like a couple of hundred people in it watching the local team. And so Qatar are looking to try and manoeuvre it around. Problem they have with that is Qatar's so small, only a small population, 2.6 million people. There can't be that much demand for Qatari football. And so what's the likeliness they're even going to sell out a stadium with 20,000 people in on a regular basis, never mind it being 40. So you're left with that situation. So I don't know if they're going to move it along and try and sell it or move it to other places in the Middle East, like the UAE. The relations are down at the moment like with Qatar and UAE, but they might be up by the time the World Cup's on, or they might sell it to other countries in the Middle East. I'm not too sure. My overall feeling of this World Cup is I feel like they'd have been better situated on having this World Cup based upon some of the countries in the Middle East. So like a joint bid with Qatar, could have had Kuwait, you could have had Bahrain, you could have had the UAE, could have had Oman, Yemen, they're a bit unstable, I know, but could have had it joint with Saudi Arabia too. Could have been based on the whole Gulf of the Middle East there, the Persian Gulf and the Arabia around there. I'm not too sure why they haven't, but there we go. It's a nice touch that they're donating it. I presume they're going to make it non-profit and just going to do it to try and boost industry there. It's a nice touch. However, I just get a feeling it's a little bit touristy, like it's been built purposely for the World Cup. Once the World Cup's done, things will just be turmoil and everything will be down. I'm not too sure, but there we go. We can't mention the Qatar World Cup in stadiums without talking about some of the controversies surrounding it. Not just the designs. The designs are meant to have come from German architecture, but there's also controversy surrounding the working conditions, working hours, and also, unfortunately, workers being killed because of the health and safety isn't like what it's like in Western Europe and in America. The health and safety is non-existent there, and unfortunately, people have lost their lives whilst constructing the World Cup. I find that extremely sad that people's lives have been lost just to have a World Cup. And I feel like more should have been done with the amount of money that these countries make, like Qatar, the amount of money that is in Qatar. They can produce a country and have it on the world stage in like 50 years. There's a lot of money there. They could have spent that on improving overall life for its citizens and its workers, and it hasn't, and people have lost their lives. I find that real sad, and I think something should be done about that. That's coming for the Qatar government to sort out. Not me. Change comes and I feel like it'd be fit to host a World Cup. I don't feel like it's in the right position to be hosting a World Cup. I feel like it's been put on the world stage because some backhanders went in at FIFA. They managed to buy themselves a World Cup, and now they've put it in there. They want to boost tourism and boost people visiting Qatar. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below, but does having the World Cup in Qatar make you want to visit Qatar? Does it, after the World Cup's done, if you think, oh yeah, Qatar looks nice, does it make you want to visit the World Cup? Have you had that with other World Cups? You know, we had it in Japan and South Korea, 2002. Did it make you want to visit Japan and South Korea? Did it make you want to visit Germany after 2006? Did it make you want to visit South Africa after 2010? Did it make you want to visit Brazil 2014 after that? Does it make you want to visit Russia? We had the World Cup this year. Do you want to go to Russia now because the World Cup was good there? Do you feel like, oh yeah, it looks like a nice country to visit? Would it make you want to go? I don't know the answer, so I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, but all in all, I'm not too sure if it's a fit country to be hosting it because of its size. I feel like a joint bid would have been better, and if they could improve the living conditions and working conditions and workers' rights there, I feel like it'd actually be a good place to have a World Cup. I'm not too sure I agree with having it in the winter, but it's something new, so yeah. You know, always got to try new things, so why not? But yeah, some smart looking stadiums, some unusual looking stadiums, some modern looking stadiums. If you're looking at places to stay in Qatar, it's quite accessible by plane and flying there. Some of the places are very grand, even the 2- and 3-star hotels there look like palaces. Everything's marble, everything's white, everything's clear, everything's cool, because it's so damn warm there that everything's got to be cool. Is it a place that should have a football on the world stage? Could it for 4 or 5 weeks of the year host a World Cup and do well? I'm a bit concerned about the stadiums afterwards, like I was with South Africa. I don't think that I think more should be done to try and preserve stadiums and make things more accessible for people. If they're not going to use the stadiums to sell the stadiums or use them for different purposes, or spread the wealth somehow and try and expand the wealth around with more people, because time and time again, once again, we've got another World Cup where you got all these people visiting from all around the world. People say how nice it is, then once the World Cup's done, everyone forgets about them. You know what I mean? South Africa, they've had it, and now the stadiums are dead, and South Africa just continues plodding along like it did before the World Cup. Brazil's done the same. I'm sure some of the stadiums in Russia will go on the same. Russia's got more prestige there. There's more people that enjoy football. They've got a large population there for the stadiums to come into use. Some of the stadiums will rot, and then we end up with it being in Qatar, where, again, just a small population, smaller than Wales in size, that, you know, things might die. On the upside, you don't have to worry about travel for any of the teams, do you, really? You just travel around, really. You'd be based in Doha, I imagine, all the teams, and, yeah, you're not too far that you have to travel to anywhere. So you don't have to worry about fatigue that much. You might with the weather, but you don't have to with all the travelling. So that's one good side to it, and having it in a small country, I suppose. I made a nice metaphor at the end. Qatar World Cup reminds me of like an all-inclusive resort where you get there, it's nice, you got nice food, it's nice to stay there, everything's picturesque, but you can't actually leave, you know, because it's just unsafe, and it's just been purposely built just for tourism, just for you to be there. Here's what you've got, here's what you'll have, then once you're done, you go home. Pretty much it. But you can say that about all World Cups, I suppose. So there we go, that's been the video. Sorry I rambled on about the stadiums and that, but, you know, I do that sometimes. But if you enjoyed the video, don't forget, leave a big thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, press the big red button, press the bell and put your notifications on to be notified when I've uploaded. Social media links, I'll leave them in the description below if you want to go and check me out on my Twitter and my Instagram if you wish. And I'll see you all again for the next video. Like I said, leave your video recommendations in the comments below along with your thoughts with the video and the Qatar stadiums and the Qatar World Cup itself. So I'll see you again very soon for the next video. So it's been JSGC, hope you'll have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace! Ciao for now.